This is the Rebel HR Podcast, the podcast about all things innovation in the people space. I'm Kyle Rode. Let's start the show. Welcome back, Rebel HR community. Really excited for the conversation today. We are going to be talking about sustainability and some environmental thought leadership with Graham Hill. Graham is the founder and CEO of the Carbonauts. They help Fortune 1000 companies build climate-literate, sustainability-enthusiastic cultures via tools such as live, interactive, and sustainability workshops. I'm super excited to dig into this topic. Graham, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Kyle. Excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. And, I think this is a topic that doesn't get a whole lot of air time in the HR community. So I'm really excited to kind of talk through that. But I view it as one of those areas that could be a huge engagement driver, culture builder. It's something that we have been asked to look at in many of our corporate cultures. And so I'm excited to dig into it today. The first question that I have for you, Graham, is what motivated you to get into this space, to jump into the world of environmental sustainability?
I'm clearly an entrepreneur. That is crystal clear. And I really think entrepreneurs are problem solvers. And I've just always had a leaning towards environmentalism. And it just sort of became clear to me earlier than most that we had a real problem on our hands. And so, very, very mission driven. I've been lucky to build and sell a couple companies. So I definitely didn't need to start another one, particularly one involved in such a challenging area, which is behavior change. But I'm just really driven. I think there's a beautiful green future just around the corner. And I also think we're in a lot of trouble. And so I just became really obsessed with the idea of how we move people from awareness to action and, get to that beautiful green future as fast as we can.
I love that. And I think you said it very well, where it's, enacting behavior change in a way that's lasting is something that I think you and all of us HR professionals could probably beat our head against the wall about quite a bit.
Yes.
And it's one of the things that really fascinated me about the work that you do, which is the fact that you focus on climate literate and sustainability enthusiastic cultures. So it's, the focus is really culture change within companies. So what motivated you to focus on that aspect of behavioral change?
Well, I've been at this for 23 years. So I've been doing environmentally focused the last 23 years. I built one of the biggest green sites on the web in 2004 with a tongue-in-cheek name called Tree Hugger. It's still going strong, billions of web pages later. So I've definitely been around for a while. The thing that has really changed since 2004 when I started Tree Hugger is that we've got awareness. That's really high, which is awesome. And climate doesn't care about awareness. So climate just doesn't care about our feelings. So I became sort of really obsessed with the idea of how do we move people from awareness to action. And so, so I'm very clearly in behavior change and very clearly in really in building people's identities so that it's a lasting change and it sort of comes from deep within versus just something that one does and then can do other things contradicting that action at some point.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really great call out that, there is a lot of awareness, right? And I think it's pretty rare that you'll find somebody that says, no, climate change isn't a thing. I mean, there's some outliers, and probably some work to do, but, for the most part, the collective knowledge is that humans are doing this, right? And I think about it similarly to like eating healthy. Like we know what healthy eating looks like, but the actual behavior of eating healthy is extremely difficult.
Yes.
Because it's not necessarily easy. And so I think about that in the context of behavioral change as it relates to our environmental sustainability. It seems pretty similar to me. So
Yeah.
as you think about the difficulty of that behavior change, and as we think about that culturally within our organizations, where do you start? Because this just it's fairly difficult, and it's a big, massive problem that I think a lot of HR professionals are just kind of not sure where to start or what to do.
So I think in a way, the fundamental challenge is this awareness to action. It's knowing to doing is the big one. And in the environmental movement, which is going to be similar to many of the other things that HR professionals look at, it was all about information, right? But I've heard said, like, if it was just an informational thing, then we would all have six-pack abs and be millionaires, and we would have solved the environmental crisis, right? Tree hugger would have done it. We got a ton of information, but what the environmental movement was able to do is sort of get information out, get people to know, get the awareness. But really, what's important for all these, same as you're talking about eating and health and wellness kind of stuff, is the doing. So how do you get people to the doing? And that becomes much more about identity, and it's really challenging. So one thing the environmental movement and other movements have done really wrong is just really focusing information. We get them the right science, people will understand and they will do the things, and it's just not the case. And so our approach, despite having done a bunch of tech-oriented stuff, we really went back to basics and realized that this is not an informational thing. We need to look at behavior science, and we need to apply those principles. And so we do workshops. And so part of it is we're not very logical as humans. So you may, you could do yoga or do your workout at home. That's the cheapest. That's the most convenient. Many of us have trainers or go to classes, even though it's much, much less efficient. And that's because we like being in community and other people inspire us. And so we view the same thing. Like we will do some on-demand videos and hybrid stuff and do our best with that. But where we really shine is workshops where it's a cohort. So 20, 30 people and a teacher and a TA. And we do them mostly virtual, but you're in a room, quote unquote, with cameras on, you're interacting, and we make it emotional and connecting, and we do it in sort of public. And that is what the magic sauce is. And so if you can get people to do it in community and get people to know that other people are watching, if you can build the social norms, that's when you start to get some real action. And really, if you could, ours is largely about focus on action. And if you can get people to take action, actions actually form identity. You do a thing, and then all of a sudden you're the kind of person who would do that thing. And so it works the other way also. So actions can really build identities. So we're really focused on doing it in community, making the path really easy and really personalized. Generic sort of tips and that kind of stuff doesn't really do it. People are really busy. You need to make it personalized to work for them, meet them where they are, make that path really easy. And then carrots and sticks, reward them for their behavior and really find the bright spots and applaud them for the people that are doing that stuff. And that's the way you sort of get momentum. You help people build their identities as people that care about climate. And the beautiful thing there is that then you come into alignment. Most people are concerned, and rightly so. It used to be that this was this sort of scientific idea of the future, but now we see it on the daily news. And so there is a lot of climate anxiety for good reason. And so when you start understanding this stuff, but more importantly, taking action, then you start to come into alignment and you just feel better as a person. And so we think it's a very powerful thing to do. And our major premise is that, like, what's great is that these big companies have aggressive sustainability goals. Like, it's really, I'm quite frankly surprised. We definitely need them, but I'm still surprised that they exist. Challenge is, though, you got these small sustainability teams often and not enough budget. And then the base culture of the company is the culture. The culture is composed of the average, and the average person doesn't know much about sustainability. The average person thinks it's about straws and coffee cups and recycling, important things that we have to fix, but really a small part of the picture. And so we get them focused on really the stuff that matters, and get them moving forward, and therefore we can start to build a climate literate, climate enthusiastic culture, and that's going to support what the sustainability team is doing. And what's clear is that we need to go a long way in a short period of time, and it's aggressive. And so we need the culture of the company, but behind the sustainability team, and we really need to bring sustainability into every aspect of the business. Right? It needs to be that every job is a climate job. And so, our job at the highest level is to help move that culture. And the great thing about it is it makes people feel good and makes people appreciate their company. So it helps with the attraction and retention, and attracts new employees to the company and keeps them involved, allows for sort of upskilling and moving into new areas. And it just all works together.
So, I think it's a fascinating approach, and it's a problem statement that I think many of us can probably agree to, where it's like, it's hard to get people to make change outside of something that would be kind of like novel, right? Like, it's almost like, hey, bike to work this one day, right? And you might get a small percentage of your organization to do it, but it's very minimal. Or like, clean up on Earth Day, stuff like that, right? It's like it's like hey, we're gonna mission accomplished. We planted a tree. Go back to work and burn that carbon footprint, will you? Right? Yeah. And so I'm curious, as you think about these cohorts, and as you work with these organizations, what is a typical audience or participant profile look like? Like, how do you select who sits through these things, and in order to make as broad of a ripple culturally as possible within the organization?
So that's a little bit of a complicated question, because we do have a product called network mapping, which asks a bunch of questions. You sort of survey the staff, and it allows you to really understand the network, and that allows you to be very strategic about the people that you would want to get for whatever behavior change you're trying to move throughout the organization. So that's a separate thing, and we're starting to do a bunch of that, and we really like doing that. But generally, we're not mandatory, and so it's people just sign up, and I think that's a good way to go. I mean, we would love it from a finance perspective if companies made it mandatory on one hand, but on the other hand, there's a lot of people listening to this call who know this better than anyone. There's a lot of mandatory training, and a lot of people don't like it. And Kyle, you might want to take our workshop if it was sort of offered, but when you're forced to take it, you might develop a bit of a different attitude towards it, right? It is different. It's nice to sort of elect and not be forced. And so, so the client usually chooses. They could send it to the whole company. They could send it to a division. They could send it to a team, and people sign up. But it's voluntary, and we like that. And I think this is like our big theory of change is that studies suggest if you get about 25-30% of a population, that's when things tend to flip. And so I think it's largely that the reason that happens is that if the thing is sort of fundamentally right, morally correct, like it feels like the right thing, then when you get 25%, 30% of the company doing it, there's just enough momentum, and those other 70%, they just know it's the right thing to do. And so it flips. And so we're generally, I would say, in a situation really almost on a planetary level, but also within a company where we probably have a few percent of people who are aware and taking action, 3, 4, 5%, somewhere in there. And so we really view our role as, how do we find those people and be coaches and cheerleaders and get them taking action and making it visible, both physically and digitally, and expand that percentage, just grow and build some momentum, grow it until you get to 25 or 30% when the whole thing will flip. And that's when your deniers will come along, because everybody else is doing it. Like, we are very much, our social norms is how we work. I mean, we care so much about what people think, and we do the silliest things. I mean, look at this ripped jean thing that we've had for like the last decade. I mean, if you were an alien coming to Earth, you'd be like, what is that all about? But that's just how we work. And, we just need to acknowledge it, and that's okay. And so the social norms that we need to build are just of people being responsible, and just living a lower footprint life and making the appropriate decisions. And at least we can focus on the solutions at this point that have little to no sacrifice and sometimes benefits. And so, great, healthy vegetarian food. Solar often is a great way to save you money if you can afford to have that on, if you own your home or whatever. Electric cars are turning out to be great from a performance, but also financial. And so we want to really make those positive and make it negative. Like, we still got so far to go. Like, the number of, right. I still eat some meat. I'm a sort of weekday vegetarian-ish. But I go to these environmental events and they're still, serving bottled water and meat. And, I think it's a good sort of example of where we're at. We're just not there. We've got a long way to go. So we've got to build those social norms.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and a great call out. Yeah, I mean, making it not mandatory. Listen, I'm sure everybody who's listening to this is just like smiling, like, yeah, that's like hey, HR needs you to take this training. Like, nobody wants to be there, and it's just like you might as well just check the box and sign the dotted line that you took the training and then go about whatever you were doing prior.
Yeah.
So I think it's powerful. I am curious on the, to go back to kind of the social norms piece. I think one of the challenges, or one of the perceived challenges, that's probably the right word, is that being sustainable is more difficult, or it's more time consuming, or more expensive, or it's harder. And so, I guess first question, maybe two questions here. The first question is that actually true, or are there, is that kind of a misconception that we can address? Then the second question is do the social norms outweigh that for people once they realize it, and once you see kind of that network effect and the community start to kind of hold everybody accountable, where it doesn't feel like it's as hard because the culture is kind of supporting it?
Yes. So I think that the fair answer in almost any question to do with the environment is it depends. So the details are very important. And so I think that's important. So yeah, it absolutely depends. There are some, great solutions that I just highlighted that are really, really compelling and would, solar often will save you a bunch of money. In fact, it can be a fantastic investment. EVs are starting to be as well, depending on your situation, how much you drive, a lot of details. So, it depends on how you look at things. Certainly, eating a healthy, organic, vegetarian diet in the long term may save you a lot of healthcare costs, but it's like hard to say. So, it depends on sort of the life cycle that you're looking at. So it depends. I would also say that from in terms of expense for people that can afford it and are not balancing their checkbooks on the monthly, I think it is such a great thing to support, because that brings up the volumes and lower the costs and really helps make things happen. So, and the second part of that question was, I've forgotten.
It was around the kind of that societal change. So, once you hit kind of that 25 to 30%, and then you kind of get like almost like peer pressure, for lack of a better word, and you start to see.
Oh yes, will people change. Even if it was more expensive or more difficult, would people absolutely? I think we do a lot of things where there's I don't know, like social norms are like, we used to throw garbage out of our cars in the 70s. Like, that was a common thing. Now you literally wouldn't do that if you were alone in the middle of nowhere and there was 0% of you getting caught. It's in us. It's part of us. It's just like you don't do that. So I think that there are a lot of things that we'll do that are just about social norms. Like, yeah, absolutely. They are so powerful. They are how we work. And what's really interesting about them, and that's why we do this network mapping, is that the social norms, that there's simple contagions and complex contagions, and most of the environmental stuff is complex contagions. And so the way that we make those decisions, go solar, go renewable energy, get an EV, change your diet, is by looking around us and looking at the 10 people closest to us that we respect the most. And that's really how we make decisions. And so if you get a few of them out of those 10 doing a thing, and you intuitively, subconsciously, consciously know it's the right thing to do, that's really going to get you thinking about whether you should adopt that new.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about it like I think about it from the standpoint of like a new hire, right? So let's say we hire someone new in the organization. If they walk to the trash can and they throw something that's recyclable into the non-recyclable trash, and somebody sitting in the lunchroom says, "Hey, wait a minute, that goes in recycling, you missed."
Yeah.
I guarantee that new hire is not going to do that again.
Yeah.
Right.
Great example.
And it's not necessarily about being punitive, but it is about like having like that same level of culture, just like if somebody were to do something that was unsafe. Yeah. Right. And that's kind of what I think. Like, I think about this. To me, it sounds very similar to like building a safety culture, right? Where it's like you build awareness. Right. And then you've got to have like an accountability lever where it just becomes ingrained, where people call out things that don't look right or need to be changed. And it's kind of the same, it's kind of the same approach.
The behavior that you might have had in another company, in the new company, you're looking around to figure out, how do people do that here? And if they do it differently than your old company, like, it is very unlikely that you're going to do what you used to do. You're going to change. And so, that's also, I think we often really think that we are so, our political leanings or views or whatever are just so solid, but it's proven again and again, if you're relocated into a different area. So if you're right leaning and you're relocated into a left leaning, or left leaning and relocated into right, over time, your views are going to shift. It's just sort of the way that it works. Not all of us, but generally. So that's how we make decisions. We really care about what people think and what the appropriate behavior is.
Absolutely. I think it's fascinating. And so, and I think inherently it makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, as you think about the network mapping tool that you've mentioned, what prompted you to realize that was something that you needed as you were building out your organization and starting to figure out how to make this sweeping change? Because to me, it sounds brilliant. There's so many use cases for this. So what?
Yeah,
what
absolutely,
that?
And it can be used for many things beyond sustainability, and for evil as well as for good. That's we want people to sign something before that we work with them. Just joking. Yeah, well, I think we just sort of intuitively realized, hey, if you've got 100 people, you're trying to get change to happen. You've got 100 people and $100. You could give $1 to each person, but you might be better. It might be better to give $10 to 10 specific people. That might be much more effective. We read this book called Change, How Big Things Happen by this guy, Damon Santola. And we just got really inspired about it. And that basically is talking about the complex, is that he talks about this complex versus simple contagions and how that works. And so, it's not all about what Oprah says for the simple contagions, maybe, but for more complex contagions, it's about the people that are around you. Like that's what, and so you want to understand what that network looks like within a company, such that you can enlist those people and basically those are the ones you want to put money on. And so we ended up finding a scientist who worked with Damon on this and knows all the sort of algorithms to create these very cool network diagrams of the company itself. And we ask a bunch of questions. At the same time, we ask a whole bunch of sustainability questions. And so what comes out of it is we know, okay, well, if we want to get sort of information stuff through the company, these are great people to talk to. If we want to actually get change to happen, these are good people to talk to. You also might find out, these are our detractors. Like it's good to know who they are. And you also may find, these people are actually not very connected at all. Those are probably most susceptible to losing them because they're not connected. And you might find also, hey, we seem to have the company is really divided into two, and we need to build more stronger bridges between them because we've only got maybe a couple of these sort of wide bridges and otherwise don't. So you learn a ton about the company makeup and who the people are, and so it just allows you to more strategically get change to happen. It's very cool. We're very, very excited about it.
Yeah, I love this. There's probably a whole other podcast I could just nerd out on how to figure out the connectivity. But I'm curious. I want to maybe close out maybe my final question before the flash round is I think that we got a lot of HR professionals on here that I guarantee are understand the importance here and want to help make our organizations more environmentally friendly. What would be one thing that you would recommend that we do in our organizations in order to start this process moving forward and to really start driving some of this change?
We'll be back after a quick break.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And this is being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
I mean, it's hard because of course I just want to answer work with us because it's true. Like we have some
side note. We'll have that link in the podcast show notes. Open it up.
Yeah.
Check it out.
I think you want to, ideally the HR people themselves want to get involved, and you can, we and us, other people, there are a whole bunch of ways to do this, but for example, like we have a 1 hour workshop, which is really going to help you run a carbon calculator, understand what the components of your footprint are, understand the big six, the major solutions. And so that kind of thing, like just getting people, it's understandable that most people don't know much about this. And then most people think it's recycling and straws and coffee cups and that kind of stuff, but it's not. And so just sort of getting that base level of knowledge, I think can be really good. And it shouldn't be scary. People should understand, like, we can meet people where they are, and others can as well. So I think getting a little bit of that would be really important. Green teams, I think, are a really powerful thing, and many companies are building them, and that's really like finding your passionate people. And there may not be a ton of budget in sustainability, and so this is a way to sort of get more people involved, start building that culture. So I think building a green team is really helpful. I think you want, if you're trying to get sustainability to happen in the organization, you try to find who up top cares about this stuff and talk to them and enlist them. And a lot of this is just building the social norms and showing that the company cares and getting the leaders. You sort of got to sort of sandwich.
Absolutely.
So we definitely do a lot of that. We can come from the bottom, get a lot of people involved, engaged, climate literate, climate enthusiastic. And then if you've got some good people at the top sort of starting to really talk about this, then you can sort of sandwich the organization in a very positive way. Vegetarian sandwich, obviously.
There you go. Love it. All right, Graham, this has been a wonderful conversation. We are approaching the end of our time together. I want to get your responses to the Rebel HR Flash Round. Are you ready?
That sounds great. Yeah, and it's very fun. This is like it's so fun to talk to HR. It's so like we're part of, like, we've been doing, we work for some really big companies, Amazon and Chanel and AT&T, and like we got some great clients, but we're mostly sustainability people, and we're wondering where HR is.
Right.
In some of them we talked with HR, but we haven't talked to HR much, so we're excited to do so. All right, Flash Round.
I'm excited. I'm excited to share this message as well. Question number 1, where does HR need to rebel?
So where I go to with this, and I really haven't spent any time thinking about it, but where I go to with this is, I think it's a really hard line, probably. But I think authenticity is the thing. And I think there's a lot of sort of legal concern and therefore sanitizing of things. And I think people like real people and real companies and transparency and just sort of unvarnished. And when things are overly sanitized and we're always so worried about legal, and we're forgetting about the sort of the fundamental idea behind whatever rule or regulation there is, I think you really lose something, and people get less connected to the company. So I guess just transparency, authenticity, and HR being cool. I think. I realize that's a very, very difficult thing in our world, in our legal world. But I just think that there's really something to be said for that, and I think that's kind of thing that can help you retain people. And I think retention is really important. The institutional knowledge that walks out the door when you lose someone is a really, really big deal. So authenticity and transparency, and just how can HR be just more human? Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. You just summed up one of my recent keynotes.
Oh yeah, great. I like that.
Nice work. I'm going to use the word cool, though. I didn't use the word cool, but that's really what I was saying. Like, be cool. Come on, man, be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question number 2, who should we be listening to?
So HR probably already is, but I think behavior science is the thing. And so that's who I think you should be listening to, is behavior scientists, really looking. And I have a number of podcasts. The one that comes to mind is Katie Milkman, but there are a lot out there, I'm sure. Yeah, hers is called Choiceology. And I'm just looking up some other ones. There's one called the Behavioral Design Podcast. And I'm sure there are a bunch. So yeah, I think behavior science is just so important. I via TED ended up being friends with a guy named Dan Ariely, who works out of Duke and wrote Predictable Irrationality and all those books. And yeah, I just think listening to those people is that's what I would suggest.
I agree. Yeah, I could geek out on that stuff all day. Dan Ariely is fascinating, by the way. Fascinating research. So yeah, I'm with you. Final question. How can our listeners reach out, connect with you, learn more about the work that you do, and ultimately, hopefully, use your service?
I'd love to hear from them. I'm Graham at thecarbonauts.com, Graham. And LinkedIn is a great place as well. I'm just trying to figure out I think if you searched Graham Hill, Tree Hugger, the Carbonauts or something, LinkedIn, you'll find me. But LinkedIn's another great place. And
we'll figure it out. We'll find
work, but it's thecarbonauts.com.
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure we put that out there and so that our listeners can connect. Open up your podcast player, click in and check it out. Graham, really appreciate the work that you do and the work that you're doing for the world. Thanks. And just a fascinating topic that I think HR needs to get a little bit more engaged in. So I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thanks. I love it. Yeah. Please, if anyone wants to reach out, whether they're interested in working or just want to chat about this stuff, I'd love to help. I care about the planet and where we're going, and happy to help out in whatever way I can.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Graham. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right. That does it for the Rebel HR podcast. Big thank you to our guests. Follow us on Facebook at Rebel HR Podcast, Twitter at Rebel HR Guy, or see our website at rebelhumanresources.com. The views and opinions expressed by Rebel HR Podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any of the organizations that we represent. No animals were harmed during the filming of this podcast.
Baby.